Welcome everybody to Transfer Weekly, this your brand new show on F1 feeder series to keep up to speed with all the transfers going on in Formula 2, Formula 3, FRECA and all your other feeder series. I'm your host, Chris McCarthy, and joining me today, the two men who have been bold enough to predict the grids for Formula 2 and Formula 3 for next season. For Formula 2, it's Tyler Foster. Welcome to the show. And for Formula 3, Michael McClure. Gents, welcome. Now let's come to you, Tyler, because I want to talk about some transfers. Of course, this is the place where we're going to cover all the transfers from the week. So let's cover Arthur Leclerc, shall we? Because there has just been some big news coming in to us that Arthur Leclerc is going to be making the step up from Formula 3 to Formula 2, but not with the team that he raced with this season. He's going to be moving to Dams. Tell us a little bit more about this, Tyler.
Yeah, so the 22-year-old, obviously the younger Leclerc, and he's going to be moving away from PREMA to Dams, where he'll partner with Ayumu Iwasa for next year, possibly, if Ayumu stays. But the expecting was that he was going to move to PREMA, but with the quality that PREMA have had in their F3 lineup, it's been difficult to find Leclerc to move up into that spot, as I'm sure we'll get to in a bit. So as a result, he's had to find his way elsewhere, and he's gone to a French team in Dams.
Yeah, great stuff. Now sticking with Tyler, one of the big transfers that we had at the start of the week also came in Formula 2. You mentioned the team PREMA, and it came from the PREMA team there. Ollie Behrman, who just seems to be zooming up the feeder series, of course, had his success in F4, winning Italian and ADAC, jumped up, did fantastic in FIA Formula 3 this year, and now it's been confirmed he is going to be going to Formula 2 as well. He stood on the top step this year, the Ferrari Junior, doing absolutely fantastic things, and now already Tyler going up to Formula 2.
I mean, he's still 17 years old. You know, what he's achieved in such a short space of time after winning both the Italian and ADAC championships in 2021. You know, as you mentioned, the Ferrari Driver Academy Junior, which always helps if you're trying to get obviously to the top, to F1. And although he only had one win from his rookie F3 campaign, his consistency was so good, and as a result, he finished just behind Maloney and the eventual winner, Victor Martins, for the championship. But a great season, and someone who really could step in and have an immediate effect with PREMA despite his young age and lack of experience, you could say.
Right, let's stick with PREMA. Michael, I want to come back to you now because PREMA have sewn up their team pretty fast for FIA Formula 3 next year, and they've taken a couple of drivers from the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. I've got used to saying that over a couple of years, and they've also taken a driver from F3 from another team as well. Why don't you bring us up to speed with the transfers that we've had in F3?
Yeah, I mean, looking at PREMA, obviously the reigning team's champions, it's hard to think of a lineup that's really more formidable. Starting with Zach O'Sullivan, widely considered to be probably their lead driver entering this year. O'Sullivan finished 11th last year in Formula 3, most notably took Carlin's first ever F3 pole position since the series began in its current form in 2019. O'Sullivan's also taken 2 podiums, one in the feature race at Silverstone at home from that pole position, and also at Zandvoort in the sprint race. So truly a very special talent, I would say. Somebody who we know won the Autosport Young Driver Award last year, and is tied to the Williams Driver Academy. Someone to keep an eye on, I think, potentially on the way to Formula 1 in a couple of years. And with PREMA, he's got a really good shot at making good on the promise he's shown and really fighting for the championship title, and giving that back to PREMA. They didn't win this past year, but with the lineup they've got, it's a really strong shot. And looking alongside O'Sullivan, the 2 top rookies, who you could say one of them maybe even should have been in F3 last year. Paul Aron finished 3rd in FRECA in 2021, had a difficult 2020 season with ART Grand Prix, reunited with PREMA last year and really came on strong. And then this year just continued to develop. Finished 3rd again, couldn't quite fight for the title with teammate Dino Beganovic, who is going to be the 3rd PREMA driver this year and won the title in dominant fashion in FRECA this year. But both drivers, a well-deserved step up, and both of them have had experience visiting the F3 paddock. Paul Aron was with the team in Spa, and Dino Beganovic was with the team the next weekend in Zandvoort. So both have been embedded there. Both have experienced racing on the circuits as well. not only those, but also places like Monza, the Hungaroring, even Red Bull Ring. So a lot of the tracks on the Formula 3 calendar for next year, they've got experience on. So it should be a really strong lineup. A younger one than Premis had in previous years, but one that I think can deliver a lot on the promise they've shown in the past few years.
It's going to be very, very quick lineup, and Paul and Dino have been teammates now for a couple of seasons. Right, let's move on then, because not only PREMA have been in business, but also MP Motorsport have been in business as well, both in Formula 2 and in Formula 3 as well. Let's start in Formula 2, shall we? Tyler, I'll come to you first, because they made a signing, quite a big signing as well. They have picked up Dennis Hauger, ex-Formula 3 champion, to get in their car next season. What did you rate in this one? Of course, he's raced with PREMA for the last couple of seasons now. Didn't go so well for him in his first season in Formula 2 this year. Do you think MP is a good move for him? I mean, they have just won the championship with Felipe Drugovich. So how do you see this move for Dennis?
Well, at first glance, people might consider it to maybe be a bit of a sideways move. Obviously, PREMA is sort of the team you want to be at if you want to win races and win championships and get up there. But with the way that things have worked out for him, I think that maybe it is time for a switch. You know, he was at PREMA in his title-winning season in F3, and that worked out for him. But as you said, it's not been a great season for him, despite the fact that he has won a feature race and a sprint race. The consistency's not been there at all, and he's 11th in the championship. He's certainly below the other rookies that you'd expect him to be challenging with. So a move to MP, as you said, Drugovich's team that have, should have a chance this weekend of actually winning the team's championship for the first time in their history, shows just how good they've been. And if they can partner up someone with Hauger, they could, again, a great formidable team that could be. You'd expect that Hauger will certainly improve for next year. The case is a question of, can he handle the pressure? He's still a Red Bull junior, still 19 years of age, but he is an F3 champion, so that's something to keep your mind focused on.
Right, let's go to F3. I'm going to come back to you, Michael, because they've also done some business. They've signed their first of 3 drivers for next season in F3. Mari Boya is stepping up from FRECA as well. It's fair to say he's had a bit of a disappointing second half to his season in FRECA, or a disappointing season overall, 10th in the championship. But he signed with MP. He reunited with them, having raced with them in Formula 4. What do you make of Mari jumping up?
Well, interestingly, MP didn't set the timesheets alight in testing, but when you look deeper into the data at their race pace, they did look really strong. And a driver who could potentially partner Mari Boya at MP, Franco Colapinto, looked especially strong, potentially the top returning driver in F3 this year, if he does indeed sign with MP as we have predicted. But for now, they've signed Mari Boya, which, if you look at their FRECA relationship, makes a lot of sense. I will say the biggest surprise for me was that he actually left ART mid-season. But one begins to wonder in that kind of situation, was this a long-term plan? Is there something where at ART there wasn't going to be space for Boya? And so he said, you know what, MP either approached him or he came to them. They decided maybe there's an opportunity for him to step up to F3 after the form he'd done early in his second season this year, with a podium in Imola and several consistent points finishes. It did look like potentially the right move. Based on the second half of the season, you might think otherwise, but I think Boya has shown enough potential to merit this, and certainly in testing looked like he fit right in there.
Okay, going back to F2, Carlin have been in business as well. They have signed Enzo Fittipaldi onto their grid for next year. He has joined the seat. Let's talk a little bit about him then, Tyler. He switches over from the Charouz team, where it's fair to say he's outperformed, so much so that Helmut Marko has signed him to become a Red Bull junior going forwards as well. He was an Italian F4 champion. We all remember what he did that season back in 2018, but 6th place, 6 podiums going into the season finale for him. So it's been a fantastic season, and I think he's very much earned this space, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, certainly the driver you'd say has had the biggest season in terms of expectation compared to his actual reality. 6th in the championship, 126 points. He is unfortunately the highest scoring driver to go winless this season so far. So he'll be looking to hopefully change that in the final round at Abu Dhabi. But nonetheless, a quality season. Charouz have had a good car this year and a good setup. The team is actually, I think, very underrated. So I think it is worth noting that they are not a team towards the back. They have certainly been a strong midfield team this year. And Fittipaldi has taken every advantage and every opportunity that he can. If Fittipaldi does make that Carlin spot, his in terms of being dominant, then there's no reason why he can't fight for a title. He has come out of nowhere. There will be a lot more pressure on him being a Red Bull Junior, but I guess one thing that's interesting to mention is that now being a Red Bull Junior, he has also in the past been a member of the Ferrari Driver Academy. So, he has had that experience of being in a top F1 Junior team before. It didn't work out that time. Maybe it will this time.
Gabriel Bortoleto, he is signed for Trident for next season. The fast Brazilian coming up from FRECA, stood on the top step of the podium at Spa this year, qualified on pole position as well, put in a really good performance, 2 wins and 5 podiums to finish in 6th place. And he was the fastest driver when he got out in testing at Jerez. Michael, what do you make of this one? Trident have always been a quick team over the years. Gabriel Bortoleto, an exciting signing for them.
Absolutely. And if you look at his, end of season form in FRECA, as you've alluded to, those pole positions, the wins as well in Spa. It was shortly after that, between the Spa and the Red Bull Ring grounds, that Bortoleto came to visit the F3 paddock as a guest of Trident's. He was at Zandvoort. We chatted a little bit and obviously didn't reveal anything, but it seemed to be a really optimistic Gabriel Bortoleto that we saw there. And indeed, 3 weeks later, shortly after doing so well in testing, he was signed to the team. So yeah, another driver stepping up in that same crop as Aron and Beganovic, actually somebody who did not quite fight Beganovic in Italian F4 in 2020, but was in that same group of drivers that graduated from there. So someone that I think has a lot of potential, as we've seen. Additionally, someone who is carrying, I don't want to say the hopes of a nation, but is one of the next big Brazilian stars. And after Drugovich this year, after honestly Fittipaldi this year, we're seeing a lot of interest in getting a Brazilian driver up the ranks. So he's certainly one who is setting himself on the right path to do that. Trident won the team's title in 2021. Didn't quite do it last year, but many will say that Trident would have won it if they hadn't had some poor luck early in the season. So Bortoleto is going to one of the best places he could in the Formula 3 grid. The drivers alongside him, we don't know who they are yet formally. We think that it'll be Oliver Goethe and Leonardo Fornaroli, both of whom would be stepping in effectively as rookies. So it'll be a very young Trident lineup. But Bortoleto's FRECA experience should certainly stand him in good stead for that as he comes into the 2023 season.
Let's move from Gabriel Bortoleto to Gabriele Mini, staying with yourself, Michael, in F3. Gabriele Mini, in quite dramatic fashion, actually became the vice champion in FRECA. Did it on the last race by winning the race by a single point, I think it was, in the end. He's teamed up with Hitech, quite an exciting signing for them to sign Gabriele Mini, a former Italian F4 champion, of course, and now a FRECA vice champion. And he looked very quick in testing as well. So this is a great first signing for Hitech.
Yeah, absolutely. Both him and Bortoleto have had, I would say, similar trajectories in certain ways. The driver who won Italian F4 in 2020 was Gabriele Mini, really announced his presence to the single-seater world, and somebody who was tipped to be Italy's next potential Formula One driver. I would say that's a competition between him and, we'll touch on it later, but Andrea, Kimi, Antonelli and FRECA is another one who's coming up the ranks. With Mini, a lot of people expected him to continue with ART. He's been with them for the past 2 years in FRECA, and this season really came on song to take 3 wins and 9 podiums. So a really strong showing this year for him, and a well-deserved second place indeed. And again, based on his past association with Hitech in the Formula Regional Asian Championship, now Formula Regional Middle East, Mini was also very strong there, taking a couple of wins and some podiums in a near full season campaign last year. So hopefully a happy reunion for Gabriele Mini and a good driver to potentially lead their charge into 2023.
FRECA is taking over FIA Formula 3 next year. I think it all but one so far coming up from FRECA. So we are taking it by charge. Right, Tyler, time to come back to yourself. Next signing in F2, we are going to cover one that happened very, very recently, just last week. This is Transfer Weekly, of course, and it came from Campos Racing. They have re-signed Ralph Boschung to stay on for another season. His 5th season now with the team, 7th overall. Hasn't done many full seasons, though, but another interrupted season he's had for Ralph, but he's had a couple of podiums, so this has been one of his better seasons. Do you think next year could be his year now to finally shine?
As long as he doesn't have that injury reflare, that's the big thing for him. He's had, as you mentioned, a very disrupted career in F2. He was out for pretty much all of 2020. He just wasn't a part of the grid. He had one appearance in the final round, but his focus was getting the money, getting back in the series for 2021. He had a really good end to the series actually. In 2021, he got a feature race podium and another podium in the final round, which has set him up to actually have quite an impressive season this year. He started out the season 2 good 4th place finishes in Bahrain, a feature race podium in a crazy Imola race, and then that was the round where the facet syndrome that has kept him out for over half of the season has come into effect. And the worry is that will have a long-term effect on his racing career. The hope for us is that with him definitely in the series as of now, with Campos, as you said, for this 5th season, that we can avoid any of that with hopefully the time off that he'll have, the focus that he'll have with his doctors. He's constantly been talking to them, trying to make sure that the injury doesn't come back in a worse shape. But yeah, he came straight back in with a sprint race podium at Spa, so it shows that he clearly has the ability to make it count. And Campos are not obviously the strongest of teams, a good team that always seem to get a podium here or there. So Boschung next year hopefully will have his best season in F2 to date.
Okay, so let's finish up then over at ART, one of the front runners in Formula 3, of course, and they've announced their first driver as well for 2023, and that is Gregoire Saucy, 2021 FRECA champion, raced with them this season as well. All got off to a good start with a podium, but then it didn't seem to go so well after that. He did get back in the points in the last couple of rounds, so Michael. So Gregoire Saucy back for another season. Do you think this time it's going to be a better run for the FRECA champion?
Well, Gregoire Saucy is a really interesting driver. Someone who's had a longer career in single seaters than most other drivers we've talked about so far, having stepped up in 2016. And somebody who, it's his 2nd season. We think he'll probably do better based on his past form, which has generally been one of a slow trajectory upward. He was almost 5 seasons at the Formula Renault Euro Cup level, or what eventually became FRECA in 2021, which he then won in the series' first season in 2021. A driver who also had a lot of bad luck last year. After that podium, he was in contention for potentially another one at Imola when he was hit out on the last lap by Oliver Behrman and fell down the order and wasn't able to finish the race. And another driver who very often lingered in that kind of liminal space between being near the points, but not quite close enough. And that made it difficult for him to rack up the points that someone like his teammate Victor Martins, the eventual champion, was able to put together. So Saucy certainly got a good opportunity as one of the first drivers, in fact, first driver on this list in F3 who is sticking with the same team for his next season. A relationship that brought him that 2021 FRECA crown, and one that hopefully can bring him, for his sake, some wins and podiums.
That brings us to the end of all the transfers. We have quite a lot to cover in this one because we were a couple of weeks behind, but from now on, your transfers will be coming in every week right here on Transfer Weekly. There has been plenty of other stuff going on. Calendars are quickly coming out for next year as well. We also have had the launch of a new championship as well, F1 Academy, but you can get more reaction to this on the F1 Feeder Series podcast. Right here, of course, we are focused on transfers. And we will end with the biggest news that FRECA announced their first driver as well. Andrea Kimi Antonelli is on the grid for next year for PREMA. We started out talking about them towards the top of the show, and we'll end talking about them as well. That's been Transfer Weekly. That's been episode 1. A thank you to Tyler. A thank you to Michael. Do go and check out their articles because so far the grids are exactly as they called them. So we'll keep an eye on that as we go along in these episodes. Thank you to those guys. Thank you to Jim as well, who's been backstage keeping us all wrapped up technically. But that's been it for Transfer Weekly episode 1. Be back at the same time next week for episode 2.